Huohuo is the new 5-star Wind Abundance character, and I thought that she was gonna be good, but after using her for a bit, I have to say that she feels underwhelming. This video will cover what she does and how she compares to the other 5-star defensive characters, as well as my opinion on why she's a little disappointing. Huohuo's main kit revolves around her skill and her talent. When she uses her skill, she heals the targeted ally as well as 2 adjacent allies. Depending on your Huohuo's build, you can expect around 2000 to 3500 per heal, with the adjacent allies healing slightly less. After using her skill, she gets a buff called Divine Provision for 2 turns. During this buff, whenever allies take turns or use their ultimates, they heal a little, around 500 to 1000 heal, and allies with health below 50% will also be healed at the same time. Besides the healing, Divine Provision also provides 6 charges of Dispel. The charge decreases by 1 when healing is triggered, and it also dispels a debuff at the same time. When the charge is used up, only the heals trigger. That's her skill and talent, but her ultimate is also somewhat notable. When she uses her ultimate, she increases all other allies' energy by 20% of their max energy and attack by 40% for 2 turns. Now let's discuss how she performs and how she is relative to the other 5-star defensive characters. With the way she works, Huohuo cannot heal if she doesn't use her skill. At the same time, she also cannot heal with her ultimate. The only way Huohuo can heal outside her turn is also by getting the Divine Provision buff for 2 turns that requires her to use her skill. As it only lasts 2 turns, if you do not refresh the Divine Provision buff every time it expires, you risk your characters dying because Huohuo doesn't have access to emergency healing like Luocha does, or using ultimates to sustain like Gepard or Bailu does, or sustaining during others' turn like Bailu's Invigoration buff or Xuan's damage mitigation. What this does is creating an over-reliance to use her skill. And because Divine Provision only lasts for 2 turns at E0, this leads to a rotation of skill, attack, skill, attack, and so forth. This makes Huohuo an SP neutral character, which is inferior to other 5-star defensive characters. The notably stronger kit of hers is her Dispel, but with the current enemies, you don't really need 6 Dispels. You only really need to dispel really annoying effects like Freeze, which is dispellable with Luocha 2, or even preventable with Xuan. For some concrete examples, I still personally use Bailu. In MOC, I would only use 1 to 2 skill points on her because I mainly sustain using the Invigoration buff from her ultimate. If I were to use Huohuo instead, I would have to use her skill almost every other turn because she lacks other ways to sustain the team. One upside you can say from having Huohuo is that she can provide energy and attack percentage buff from her ultimate, but that is hardly a win because generating skill points for your DPS will oftentimes yield more damage instead of just buffing attack percentage for 2 turns. Another example is I use Xuan. Although she needs to use her skill to sustain the team, she only needs to do so once every 3 turns, unlike Huohuo's Divine Provision that expires every 2 turns. At the same time, Xuan's crit rate percentage buff has a 100% uptime compared to Huohuo's buff that only lasts for 2 turns, and Huohuo also cannot ult every 2 turns. Overall, Xuan is better in terms of skill points management and also offensive capabilities. If we compare her against Luocha, it's similar to the comparison to Bailu. Luocha is even better at sustaining the team even without using skill points. Needless to say, Luocha far outperforms Huohuo in sustaining the team while generating skill points. If we compare her against Gepard, it's the same case as Huohuo versus Bailu. Gepard can solo sustain with just his ultimate and the occasional use of skills to freeze and generate energy. With all those examples in mind, Huohuo's capability to sustain the team is just too skill point reliant, and at this meta where DPS needs skill points, she's a little underwhelming. Even though Blade and Jingliu is rising in the meta and do not use as many skill points, they will still need to be paired with more skill point hungry supports like Bronya to maximize damage output, and Huohuo taking that SB away means less DPS overall. If you still decide to pull for Huohuo, maybe because you like her story quest, which I also really like, here is the ideal build. Light cone wise, the most easily accessible light cone is a new 4-star Hey over there that you can get from the event. Because Huohuo uses her skill every other turn, you will be able to benefit from the effect with a 100% uptime. The 4-star post-op conversation is also suitable for Huohuo because she needs energy regen. With that said, her best in slot is obviously her 5-star signature light cone, Night of Fright. Its effect is fully usable for Huohuo, and she also really needs the energy regen. Now onto her Planar Ornament set first. Huohuo's max energy is 140, and to achieve a 4 ult turn rotation without relying on getting hit, you need at least 24% energy regeneration rate. With an energy regen rope and the 5% energy regen that you get from the newest Panaconi or the Fonwack planar ornament set, you can reach it. Alternatively, if you're using Postop or her signature light cone, you can use whichever planar ornament set you want and just get an energy regen rope. Her planar sphere should obviously be HP percentage. As for the relic set itself, 2-piece combinations of Messenger, Longevous Disciple, or Passerby of Wandering Cloud will do. Feet piece should obviously be speed and body piece should be HP percentage, with substats all focused on HP percentage, then speed, then defense percentage. To quote a fellow Discord member that I had discussions with, it's just hard to justify using Huohuo over the other 5-star defensive characters. Her having to use skill every other turn is not ideal, and her huge win on Dispel is not really that noticeable in the current enemy meta. Her attack buff and slight energy increase from her ultimate is nice to have, but does not justify her using so many skill points to sustain the team. In the future, maybe when the enemies have multiple debuffs that are more threatening and constant dispels are needed, she can be super strong, but as of now, she is rather underwhelming. That's all I have to say about Huohuo, and subscribe for more guides.